Hi, I'm Mark Anthony Tierno, author of Maldine, Cyberdawn, Spectre Flatfoot, some other stuff, and I'm here with another writing tip. First off, I apologize ahead of time for not having on one of my usual geeky shirts that you may notice. That's because it's freaking cold in my room, and while I know some of you are a lot worse off with snow and everything else, I just have this little heater over there, and I'm a hot weather person, so I'm wearing the. Anyway, to how to plot out volume epics. Now, I love a good epic. I'm sure everyone does. The kind that spans multiple volumes. The and then you have Wheel of Time. There's Sword of Truth series, I think. There's sort of the poster boy for it, since I have books, uh, 5.2 million words and 250 characters, while Cyberdawn is a slightly less bulky 5 books, 1.3 million words, and about 50 or 60 characters, I think. Yeah, practically a short story. Anyhow, the point is, I have a wee bit of experience in planning and plotting out and doing up these epics, and I thought I'd pass a few tips on to you. Like I said, it's fun reading an epic, but from the point of view of the writer, it involves a lot of planning ahead. Just in my Maldine series, I did an incredible amount of planning ahead, and I still have a world book notes printed out like about quarter-inch thick or something that I refer to. Uh, so these are going to be a few tips for the writer on if you have that big multi-volume monstrosity, you know what to do. First thing is to decide how much of your epic needs to be plotted ahead of time, or for that matter, how many volumes you're going to divide your epic up into. And the answer to both questions is the same. You start out by making a very general outline of your entire epic. Just enough details to nail down your beginning, the end, all your key turning points that happen along the way, you know, all the things that no matter, excuse me, how your plot may evolve along the way, and it will evolve. These are your key points, or your must-haves that would be in there. You don't need to completely flesh out, you know, the least little details of this way. More of like a bullet point list, you know, of what you intend to outline in more detail later on. Now, like I said, at this level, your outline, it, some of the notes that you put down could represent entire books. For instance, book one could be characters meet, go on their first journey, end up finding the secret of the dragon gem and the real evil in the world, etc. And that's your entire one-liner for your first book. The next one could be, you know, hunt down for the first dragon, and then the next one, the war. And in this example, something like the war, that could actually be 2 books if you want to make it a two-parter. Point is, at this point, you're doing just enough to get an idea of how things are going to go and where to draw the boundaries. It may not even take up more than a couple paragraphs for your whole thing. This is your starting point. The next step is to actually draw those boundaries. Decide which notes belong to which of the volumes in your series. Don't even have to name the books yet, just number them. You know, just a basis to work from. When you start a given book, that's when you go into more detail on outlining all the details in that book before writing it. The actual writing in individual books, that's the subject of other writing tips and other sources across the net. I'm just covering what you need to know on the whole multi-volume overview. And one of those aspects is a whole lot of note keeping. Um, I should have brought out my copy of the World Book, but I think in a past video I have shown it before. But some of the note keeping, major plot developments, new characters, maybe some particulars about the characters, like one character made a vow about something, and that vow will translate volumes of your epic and influence the plot. Even minor things, and in some cases, especially the minor things. What makes a good epic is seeing an author who doesn't forget all the little things and how they can influence the character and the plot sometimes. Like maybe if somebody picks up an annoying habit of burping every time he's nervous about something, write it down. That could end up being something like anytime he begins burping, all the other characters look at him and go, okay, what's wrong? What do you sense that we don't know? Or it alerts somebody or something to that. And if there's anything about the characters or the world that it is for, like a great background detail, things that will affect the plot, and things that because know about them ahead of time, you can actually plant little clues um, as you go along. Help this process. A database is essential. When I write, I have a couple databases going. I have one for the characters. I have one, in the case of Maldine, I invented my own language, so I have one that's a database of Maldine words. I have a word processor file in which I keep track of any plot notes and how the plot has changed as I go along, and any additions that I may have forgotten or that I've done that I might forget. Like in the first book of Maldine, for instance, Stark's longtime friend Tinnerowil is killed, and so Stark makes a vow going, I'm going to get revenge against Myro for Tinnerowil. And I made a note of that, and that vow actually pops up a couple times throughout the series, like many books later. So things like that, all the little details that you can come back to later. Just a whole lot of record keeping. Now, some of this, a lot of prep work when you're plotting out the general outline of your entire series. This is helpful also in other things, not so you know which book is going to be for what, but if you know what's going to be happening, say in book 10, then you can easily make allusions to it in book 1 or 2. Something the characters come across that sort of hint at something coming later on. Maybe you have somebody making a prophecy, going, say there will be death upon this part of the world because that's what you have down in your notes. All the more things that can, excuse me, all the more details that connect one book to the other and make for a continuous flow of the entire epic. And this is all done before you even start writing book 1. Any and all background details of your world, in my case, like I said, a dictionary, local words if you have one, all the characters statted up, anything on the background details of how the world is done, a map of your world, all the cultural notes, everything else. All that is done in some detail. Now, that's not to say you won't be adding to those as you go along. I've had several times in which I'll add cultural notes as I write them up in a given book. But to keep the consistency and for use later on in the epic, I'll of course write them down. It's like, okay, Destier can now do a thing called sand calling, which actually comes up in book 2. I didn't have that planned in book 1. It just seemed like a neat idea. So you have all the details, your general beats at the beginning, so you know where it's going. You keep track of all the things you come up with as you go along. Now, of course, you have your general plot outline all the major things ahead of time. You outline in more detail on each book as you're about to write them up. And as the plot adds to itself, and it will, you'll get an idea in the middle of some book going, ooh, this is a great idea that would add to it. The one cautionary thing you have to do is look back to those big general beats that you had outlined for the entire series. And as long as it's as this new idea is not something that goes against all those major points, it doesn't lead you too far astray from where you want books 8, 10, and 12 or something to go to, then go for it. I've had several times where I've thought up little plot details that were sort of like parallel things that enhance where I was going. And they didn't contradict any of the major beats or where it is I wanted the whole series to go. So I went with it, but you also note it down uh, in your notebook. Someplace you note down, okay, adding this little plot point going onto here. And as long as you keep it consistent and keep track of everything. And I said at the beginning, doing a book epic, there's a lot of record keeping. And some of it may be there's something that happened in book 1, and that's something you aren't going to know what it affects until book 5. And yes, I have something like that. I love leaving little clues that I actually have a scene in book 1 that a friend of mine asked, "What's that doing there?" He found out in book 9, about toward the end of book 9. And that's one of the things you can do when you have good planning on your big epics. Look upon what you're doing in a multi-volume epic as essentially composing one very long book. And each novel is basically a chapter in that book. If you look at it in terms of that, even the longest epic can be handled in that way. In fact, that's exactly how I treated molding. Book 13, in fact, is entitled Molding 13, the last chapter. So I hope all these tips have helped out, and maybe next time it'll be warm enough I'll have on a better shirt. Until now, this is Mark Anthony Tierno tuning out, and keep reading.